was I was showing only just sort of designs of possible postcards and stickers. I'm pretty glad how stickers turned out. Now, postcards was ordered from a different printer, and the process was just like more stressful. I had, first of all, we have this digital proof where you upload the file and it looked very pixelated, and I kept like sort of pulling myself, was like, should I go on with this or not? After you download that digital proof, it's actually better. It's just on the website. It looked very pixelated, and because we don't do physical proof, I was super anxious because I've never done this before. If you stay through this vlog, you'll see the result of the products that I received, but I realized I should tell you about the creation process a little bit more. So I showed you the first two postcards and stickers on the other vlog, and the third postcard design was actually taking me quite a while because I was actually trying to do like ocean theme. And the main idea for the ocean theme was because all of my designs were like really warm tones, I guess, warm tones and like a lot of pinkish tones. And I was like, I need to do something bluish. And then I attempted to do the ocean designs and just honestly experimented quite a lot and spent a long time trying to make them. So this is actually the end design that ended up being used. First of all, I was looking at the aquatic theme, and I felt like this could have turned out better, but especially because I didn't do good line art. I then put it on my iPad and colored it, and oh my god, it looks bad. And I felt like half the time, it took the most longest time to produce, and I feel like half the time I was fighting my line art. And also I did try to try to experiment, since I realized it's not working out. I tried to actually go on Blender and see if I can implement Blender as I wanted before, in adding like some colors into it from the traditional art, put it on the 3D template. It wasn't bad. I tried it on the jellyfish. The problem was that the best way to do it was to reconstruct the jellyfishes, which again I found a way to do them, to just like almost do them like a puffy stickers fairly quick. Maybe you just trace it and just I forgot what it's called. Is it like solidify or something? But it wasn't like 3D enough for me, so I decided not to go on to doing full construction. It's still something I would like to try in the future, but it is not something I want to burn my energy for. So I guess maybe when I don't feel like doing other things, I might do that. Then the next thing is like, this was actually the first one. When I was thinking about aquatic theme, this was more of like, what can I do with it? And I was thinking about, should I just make light and color, sort of dark and light sort of thing going on? And the biggest thing where it spinned off, because I realized I used too much purple and I wanted to go to the cool tones, and it was really hard. So these both things were trying to get the cool tones out, and it didn't work. I'm definitely not using it. I think I was becoming a bit sort of like feverish and just trying to get something with it. The other one, the purple one that I done before, I've done those, was this one, because again I probably didn't know what to draw, and I was like, oh, you know what, I noticed a lot of creators doing tomatoes. I like tomatoes for some reason because it's a red blob, and you know what, there are things that are good in it. I really like the texture. I like the texture on this. There is sort of overlaps, and I again changed it a little bit digitally. There are things that, even looking on the camera, there are things that does kind of work, but and I thought the theme, to be like peas in a pod kind of thing, but it's an umbrella. And however, the characters, I didn't work on characters very much and stuff like that, and it wasn't working for me. So in the end, I was painting still some of the objects from the original drawings that I did for trying to experiment with blue color. So I still use like, kept the same swimsuit for the girl. And I sort of made it a very hot summery day inside. And in my head, it was like, and I named it, I think now, Summer Homebody. It was like, when you sort of battling summer at home. And I don't like a beach sometimes. I don't like being out in the beach. I don't like tanning. I don't like swimming. So like, that's probably felt closer to home in some ways. So I reused a lot of elements from all the like failed paintings because like I say, it was a bit like uh, at that point, I was just trying to like get those ideas down, as fast as I can. And I really wanted to do more design. So it was really kind of rushing. And I think it's always like very counterproductive when I do that. But I often do that and I can't control it sometimes. So, I also put a raccoon there on the windowsill because there was a drawing with raccoons. I put it in the previous vlog, but also didn't quite consolidate. Also was purple. And then I also put the I don't know if I showed that, but originally when I thought about my sort of like a brandy dog fox creature that is just like very fat. Uh, it had like a perm, and it had like a perm. I was thinking of a sticker that just says success perm. And I also put him in this drawing as well, looking at the mirror and sort of feeling super confident. So yeah, a lot of these sort of things I just put in here. And if I didn't put it on the front of a postcard, I put it in a sketch of a back of a postcard. And I put there on the back of a postcard like a sketch of like, in my head it was a sketch of like a swarm of puffy fish, but they all kind of like have social anxiety, swarming together and they all puffed. I don't know. In my head, it felt like kind of cute and hilarious at the same time. So I wanted to use that. So I used that and also put the the doggy fox there as well in this like snorkeling diving equipment that was from the other drawing. So I feel like it was a growth. I sort of just reused the elements that I was rushing into other drawings. I reused them and they grown into something different. So I think it's okay. I think I showed some of the progress of the other postcards in the first vlog, and in this vlog, I actually wanted to show that this postcard specifically, I didn't do outline first. Like I didn't do the line art first. I actually colored it and decided to like kind of use pencils to also line art rather than like very firm, thick lines that I did for other ones. So they all done in a different process, but they all kind of have a traditional media element. And for this one, actually, I realized I didn't need to over stress about this line art, about this very precise lines. I went back on the iPad and sort of corrected things, especially when things. I stopped painting when things started getting kind of muddy and wrong, and I went back on iPad to sort of recolor some of the areas, but keeping the base of the traditional. I also know that there is definitely areas where I could tell that I was kind of getting tired, both in coloring but also finding out what else to populate in this world, because I actually was thinking about like a lot of different detail that doesn't necessarily come out as clearly necessarily, but like if everything is specific in a way, and like just producing happiness, I think. So for example, the boots are pink with like bows and like, and also those tulips on the wall actually in my head in this world was like sconces and that permanent dog, and like the glasses actually in my head were apple shaped, sort of like those hard glasses, but instead apple shaped. I don't think it's very obvious because some of them are such a like small items. It was kind of hard to keep it to the detail, but you could also see the areas where it kind of start losing the same detailness. I think that's the only way to say it. I'm still very glad. I still took, my time to actually do this, like color it multiple times, color it with paint, and then like do these details with a pencil. then put it on the iPad and really correct most of these details. So actually, I think in terms of like work I've done on this, might have been even more than some on the other postcards, really, because I actually think all of them kind of like took a while. And I guess the next biggest thing was when the merch actually arrived. So, I was counting my stickers. So this was when stickers arrived. And I'm sorry, but the quality of some of these videos were actually not focused very well. And I didn't realize because I don't really check till I reach the editing stage. And then, what can you do at that point? And I think at that point, I also was saying that I got a few extras and also I have a sample, and the sample was sort of similar quality. Oh, yes, one of the edges is kind of bothering me. Just at the header, the edge is a bit like sharper than I would like to. But again, I feel like those little things are harder to control. And I'm trying to be forgiving, and I don't think none of them really were so much different to be like B grade. So I think we hold the same sort of quality, and the company was pretty good for these, and they ordered very quickly, and I honestly had more pleasure making stickers than cards. So I also received the cards. This is the other thing I was trying, is just to make the corners for the cards. And I don't know if it's worth it or not, and I really need to have advice, because I was just testing this as like a theory, if I could just put the corners on them to protect them. Because actually, one of the things that happened later, I was taking photographs one of the days, and the set that I use for photographs definitely got corners slightly bent. I'm not selling that set, but honestly, if that's going to be the case, I will need quite a few spares. But honestly, I need best advice on this protection, because I also want to keep it as simple on shipping and packing, and at the same time easy for both sides. I don't know if it's useful or not, but I did, again, did the same thing with postcards, is checking the quality. Uh, on both sides, actually. I know I didn't do a very good check on the bottom side, but I definitely did a good count. And I did have to try to have a good look at each of them, just to know that the quality is okay. Funny enough, this was my favorite postcard, this one, because it didn't darken as much as I expected, despite it being the darkest. While the other ones definitely turned darker than I wanted, even though I shifted brightness before sending, and I did prepare for CMYK, and I did follow all the guidelines and research I could to actually have it well done. But the brightness did turn a little bit different. I feel like it doesn't give as much of a pop necessarily. But this one was my favorite, because I felt like it was pretty close. Honestly, it's colored digitally, so you would expect that that should be the case, right? But then after I doing this closely, doing one by one, I started noticing details that I don't like about my art. Like in one postcard, it would be like, oh, one little shadow there. On the other postcard would be like, oh, I don't like this line, which I think is more of art problem, not of a printing problem. More like I could have drawn it better, and I should draw it better in the future, as I had most control this one is the most digital. And the other part I did is, try to do the full packaging. So I have these glassine sheets, and the envelopes are of two kinds actually. One is like flexible, simple envelope, and the other one is like craft rigid envelope. They both are like exact postcard size. And I was trying to see what like full packaging would look like, and can I fit the set, can I fit the postcard, how much does it fit, and also testing my scale and seeing how much does that actually weigh. So the single postcard, yeah, was not bad. I think actually single was like 16 or something like that, but this is the set, and I don't think I can't even use the other envelope for a set, because I don't think it fits very nicely. At the same time, the weight alone will push over 30, and I wanted to try to keep it under 30. So this is where I was a little bit like, oh my god, it's so close. It feels a bit too anxiety inducing for me. Okay, so stickers. We have I love this one, it's so cute and round. and a little tulip sticker. So these I'm thinking of keeping as a set, since we're from the same universe, right? And then I am thinking of, right, try selling them individually. So this is the last postcard I did, the summer design. So I really failed, I think I already spoke about this, I really failed with my ocean vibes postcards. So I just reused the elements from the ocean vibes that I like. So, you know, the foxy creature with snorkeling equipment, diving equipment, and then I did put the character in the same like babe suit really that she was in one of the other images. This was the first design I did, which was done mostly traditional art. I think the ripples are very dark. I didn't think the ripples of the paper would be so dark, but here especially, right, you can see how much it's darker, which again pushes me away from actually doing traditional art. So this one, I have to remember, I think I started with traditional and then did a lot of digital on top of it. So, you know, it feels maybe a little bit different. And this one was inking traditional and then painting digital. And actually this one was the darkest in the end, and looks actually the best. I did lighten them all up because I heard from my research that the printing does darken the art, but it just feels like some of the vibrancy might have been lost from the original file despite its penancy MIK. So, you know, I did the research, I did it as I could. All the back sides are okay too, so they have little sketches. So in the quality wise, as long as I started counting them and looking at them, they all look a little bit like different in some aspect when you compare them, or something else keeps catching my eye. So there are some, like I said, the ripple, but there are some like color things on the cards that I wish I'd done better. It's mostly my art problem, I guess. There are certain, like for example, this blue line really catches my eye for some reason in some of them. I think it's too thick. Strangely enough, the most negatives I did notice on this card, as long as I start counting, even though the first impression this card did feel like it turned the best. But the most of the negatives, like some of the lines could have been thinner, some of the darker, like the blue actually really catches eye in this. Some of the blues could have been like a little bit different shades, I guess. Some of the overlay of different colors, which is interesting because this one was done digitally, so actually I probably had most control how the colors move. Right, so yeah, thing that I've had before from the artist, who's much better at papercraft than me, was giving the corners to the postcards for the prints, I think. So, you know, I try to fold some corners, but I can probably just do them for the sets rather than singles, unless I get very, very minimal order count. But because I don't think they will fit in the envelope as nicely, and I don't know if this will make these services. I heard we push the entire thing through a machine, and some of the inequalities can actually like get caught. So I don't know if this is a good idea, and I need to know if this is a good idea to protect their corners. I'm not very good at bending, so I feel like I might do opposite and actually like push corners into the wrong way rather than protecting them. So this is what's sort of playing on my mind right now, and I really would want to know if this is gonna survive, because it does become thicker on the corner of how I folded them. So I can't really do individual ones, but I thought maybe I can do this for the sets. Purely, one of the things purely, obviously envelope, second of things was because to make 4 corners for one, you know, if I do it for, like I'll need to make hundreds and hundreds of them. The other thing that I have to really think about was some people, some artists that I follow label like with a pencil their postcards for the count, so like 1 out of 50, especially for small prints, right? But I worry about like smudging. I worry about ruining it rather than giving it quality. So I wonder if I just keep it like digitally for myself or maybe put on thank you cards or something. But it also would help me keeping track of it. So this is something I want to keep consider, like how I'm gonna go in the future if I repeated this process. But at the moment, the the plan is to try to use corners for at least the first few, and put them in a simple envelope. And singles use rigid mailers, and stickers haven't quite figured out if I want to use rigid mailers or simple mail, because I think is not, I'm not expecting them to bend as much. I think I also put everything in a glycine sheet, so like I'm thinking about protection and just generally, having some sort of quality of packing, even if it's not massive. So I got extra like 6 postcards of each kind, which feels like a lot. So, it's always nice to have extras. I'm probably gonna keep them as extras rather than listing. But I thought as a trial, I'll do the 6 set pre-pack of these corners. So, I'll have that ready to go if needed. Alright. Other thing I did in this time, several weeks, I have already registered a business. I also have to, like, full disclosure, I made an Etsy store a few years ago when I had a fever. I was feeling sickly, and obviously all the brilliant ideas come with fever. So I registered a marketplace already like a few years ago, so the date there will be like not fresh, even though I didn't like do any sales. So it's probably counterproductive for the brand and so on. But I'm trying to make a jump now. Second thing is I made a banner for it, and it was very frustrating because I don't think I accounted the sizing, and obviously because it's not vector art, resizing was difficult. Again, I started with traditional art. I feel like that's just my process, doing some of traditional art and then seeing what I want to do digitally on top. I just feel like traditional art has so much interesting, so many interesting accidents that can change the color balance, discover new things you wouldn't necessarily try otherwise. I wanted to actually show the process of me updating the list, putting on pictures, and finally like publishing it. I actually tried to photograph on a windy day in outside and I couldn't, so I kind of pre-made the draft listing, which I feel like is much better idea to actually just make the listing first, because I feel like I put like the details from the printers and things like that we provide there. I think it might be a bit too technical, maybe information, but trying to give as much information to make informative decision to a customer as I would like to have myself when I choose. And it's really hard currently to predict everything for me and how it's going to work out. And I'm sure there's going to be growing pains. And one of the growing pains was that Etsy that I mentioned that I registered from before was actually registered like on a UK account. So there is a conversion or I need to be paid in a different currency. So which made it a bit awkward because all the prices and everything I preset and calculated the costs in Canadian dollars, so I know what is efficient, and if I have to like change everything in terms either have conversion, I think this is something for me to consider of remaking entire shop once I run out of this 4 months listing. But there is no direct way to change it apart from making a completely new account, which is one growing pain. and the goods tax, the VAT or HST tax. Etsy is gonna also add that on top. I already decided, even though that wasn't my original intention, to offer free delivery locally for at least the moment, to soak that fee. But honestly, a lot of fees just sort of still add on because you're still gonna have a tax fee. And I think as a product, I already was listing it on a higher tier. For a reason, to be honest, I did follow someone else's advice on these pricings. So it wasn't really like I just came up with them. I actually followed someone else's insights who also had a shop who might have used different providers, but it made sense at the time. So in that way, I decided to try to soak the delivery fee locally. I was also spending a long time to research international delivery. I haven't quite finished with setting up the international deliveries, and I think it will be also more of a learning to see if the cost I put in actually sufficient. So, best order now because I actually put probably on the lower tier and that sort of things that I think, as you can tell, I do a lot of research before actually like finishing it. So I had all the envelopes and everything prepared before even, publishing. Well, I could have just, got everything as I go. So, I'm fully equipped now. I have a growing pain, I guess. I had was that little known on Etsy fees. I think it's definitely much more Etsy fees. I know people constantly say that, but there are a lot of hidden fees, and I have to say that you're not even informed on some of them. So one of them is we also put ads. They opt you in into the ads for like to be Google searchable, which obviously good for discovering. But if it's discovered from outside, you also will be charged extra fees. So you can actually opt out of that. And for a moment, I did because I honestly don't think anyone's gonna Google postcards as much. If they want to buy from Etsy, people look from Etsy. So for a moment, I did that, and those kind of details, I think, is very much a learning experience. And I think that if anyone else is doing this jump in this economically terrible time, would like to know, what things to consider. And the marketplace, yes, I want to talk about this marketplace. I recently learned the same thing on like Audible, that you can't just transfer your account, that they all have different marketplaces. And it was funny because we said you can transfer Canadian to, I believe, Australian. No, sorry, my mistake. You can transfer UK to Australian and Canadian to American, but you can't do like UK to Canadian. And it's just so like inefficient. And that's exactly that sort of traps that I'm falling into right now. But I think it's definitely more of a growing pains. I think it's some of these are solvable issues. And the other thing that I did, yes, I wanted to share the banner process. Actually was very inspired to go back to my game. So I think this entire break of doing sketchbooking, doing postcards was actually really good for me from burnout for my game. And I was starting to get interested to going back into my game. I actually have this kind of idea for the fish, like a funicular, in my game. So, this was mostly from that. But also I started looking into like solar punk vibes. So it's kind of like pulling me to think about some other more techie details. So yeah, and that's what really this banner come out as. I know it's a little bit further away from the postcards that I made, but I just can't control where my, processes go. And I think I need to make a brand that sort of envelopes them all together. And that's why I have my Foxy character there, and as well as my Jellybot character from the game. I guess the other funny thing was that actually to put it on a banner, which I knew was going to be a thing because it's always a problem for me, I had to make about 16 versions, and they all were a little bit off the sizing wise. It felt not, intentionally designed because I think originally I was thinking about white banner,
But then I changed my mind and made it a small banner because I was like, it felt more what I wanted for the vibe, I guess. And after I made a small banner and kind of made a version that's sort of okay, then I realized that doesn't show on the phone. And I kind of was like wanting to keep it on the phone as well. And then I had to go and like remake it because once I put it on a big banner, it just looked too closed in and like you can see every problem in it. So kind of settled on something in the middle, but it's, it's not necessarily quite right. But at that point, I was like, it's something. And I feel like a lot of times I just spend so much time on trying to get a better option. And sometimes things could be just placeholders. And I think we have to accept that some of the things are placeholders. And if we get better, we get a better one. But anyway, I wanted to wrap up here, but I was also wanting to say, do think of checking out my store, especially if you do think supporting me. Otherwise, I hope you found something as a good advice for your own store and creativity, or just like random inspirations. Have a good day. Bye.